Hi, so welcome to another video, another Warhammer video this one. This one's been a bit delayed, got quite busy. Really need to settle into this. But in this one I want to talk about the concept of a Melusai army for Daughters of Khaine in Age of Sigmar. Now, you saw these things before, not really competitively. I think that's probably going to be the case in this one, but there were new rules introduced. We had, if I can find them now, the Shadow and Pain set, which changed Bloodstalkers and Blood Sisters, which are going to be your main troops in a Melusai army. In fact, they're the only Melusai troops, and also the Morathi book, of course, as well, with some extra rules in there. Now, in terms of your shock troops to begin with, so if you wanted to make an actual Melusai army, you're going to need to have Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers, and that's basically troop choices. At this point, of course, you also need a Bloodrack Medusa, because only having a Bloodrack Medusa as your general allows you to take Blood Sisters as core, which also means for a largish army, say 2,000 points, you're going to need 3 units of Blood Sisters. Now, Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers have both had their rules tweaked a little bit. Blood Stalkers, their points cost has been going up and down all over the place over the last few years. It went down again, I think, earlier this year in the General's Handbook, and then it's gone up again to 140, but there's a bit of benefit with this one. So with their ranged attacks, they get now 2 attacks instead of 1. So for 20 points extra for a unit of 5, that's well worth it. They are now significantly better. Blood Sisters have remained the same cost and largely the same stats, but their crystal gaze has changed. So the way it used to work is they'd have their normal attacks, 3 attacks, I think, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, yada, yada, yada. And then they'd have their crystal gaze, which was a single attack. You know, hit on 4, if you hit, it did a mortal wound. It works a little bit like the Stormcast Eternals Evocators, only there's only 1 of them, and it's like you roll a 4 to hit, but it made no difference from that point of view. So 50% chance of doing a mortal wound as part of your attacks. That has now been changed. It's been changed in 2 ways. First of all, it's now a 3-up chance. So, okay, that looks better. Now more chance to do those mortal wounds. However, they're no longer part of the normal attacks. This is a special ability now. It's not included in their profile. It's a special ability that is done at the end of the combat phase. So if you were to get the first attack, for example, when combat is chosen, if your Blood Sisters would get to go first, it might not be quite as good because some of them may be killed before they get to use their crystal gaze, whereas in the past they'd have got to do that as part of their attacks. So it swings and roundabouts whether it's better or worse. No points change, doesn't really matter. It could be better. Now, those are there for your troops. Now then, so you need a general Bloodrack Medusa. So I was thinking, okay, so if you come up with, say, a 2,000 point purely Melusai list, and remember in the past these sort of lists have only been created for fun anyway. What could you do? You could take the new Morathi. You can't have the option of the old Morathi, it seems anyway. You take the new Morathi, but that's 2 choices now because there's both her forms on the table at any one time. You take, say, a Bloodrack Shrine because that is a Bloodrack Medusa. You take the new hero, the Melusai Iron Scale, which I'll talk about in a moment, and then you can take your 3 units of Blood Sisters. You start on that and you think to yourself, well, what do we take here? I'm going to go for a big old block of 20 and then 2 units of 5 for that. There's a points break, of course, if you take a maximum size unit of Blood Sisters anyway, and it's nice just to have that big old block there. And then you can take 2 small units, 2 units of 5 Blood Stalkers. 1990 points. Okay, try that out, bit of fun. Won't be hopeless, seems okay. Now, with the Iron Scale Melusai, which is the hero choice, I'm in 2 minds as to whether it's not, in terms of the Shadow and Pain box set, you had a new hero choice for Daughters of Khaine and a new one for the Slaanesh one. The Slaanesh one just didn't make sense. The Melusai one for the Daughters of Khaine actually does. It's all right. It does what it does. In terms of its attacks, it's sort of like a cross between a Bloodstalker and a Blood Sister. It has the same attacks profile as a Blood Sister, and it has a similar one to a Blood Stalker. It has more attacks with the bow, but it doesn't get to do mortal wounds when it hits with a 6. But of course it also has a buffing potential there as well. My main gripe with it is it's not a Bloodrack Medusa. and it doesn't have an ability that allows you to take Blood Sisters as a battle line choice, a core choice, if you take this as your general. Now, for smaller armies, that's a bit disappointing. You can argue in larger armies, if you're going for a Melusai themed army in the first place, then, you know, of course, you're going to take a Bloodwrack Medusa, preferably a Bloodwrack Shrine. But just for the smaller games, I just thought that was a little disappointing. Now, in terms of what you could then do, battalions. I'm not a huge fan of battalions. Not the concept's fine. Just that whenever I look at them, I always think to myself, I'm not sure about this. There are several benefits you get with a battalion. You get the battalion like buff, which is sometimes good. Most of the time it's crap. Then you get the ability to take an extra relic. Well, that can be useful. But the main reason a lot of people want to take it is because you can have fewer drops. The all-important decision of who gets to take the first turn. You know, with an Age of Sigmar, particularly the concept of a double turn, very often you want that choice so that you can, if it's safe to do so, allow your opponent to go first. Gives you the chance of the double turn. With a Melusai army, you could, of course, take a Temple Nest. Now, this could be interesting. Obviously, the particular list I came up with, I'd have to modify it slightly. 130 points for a Temple Nest. Temple Nest has a Bloodwrack Medusa, which can include a Bloodwrack Shrine, of course, because that has the Bloodwrack Medusa keyword. 2 units of Blood Stalkers and 2 units of Blood Sisters. Now you think to yourself, okay, at that point, you can't make a whole 2,000 point army out of that, because for a start you're going to need 3 units of Blood Sisters, and it won't allow you to include any of the Morathis in there. But it could significantly reduce your number of drops and therefore increase your chances. But you know, for something like this, you really want, it's all about that getting 1 or 2 drops, isn't it? Now, where it becomes interesting, this has always been the case, this is from the Daughters of Khaine battle tome that's been out for several years. If you were to choose the Temple Celebron, then there's a bit of a benefit to a Temple Nest battalion there, because you can include 2 additional Melusai units. Now, that would allow you to include your 3rd unit of Blood Sisters, but also your Melusai Iron Scale. So you could include 3 units of Blood Sisters, 2 units of Blood Stalkers, your Bloodwrack Shrine, your Melusai Iron Scale, all in your Temple Nest, and, you know, tweaking things about, you could absolutely make a list out of that. And in fact, if you didn't want to take the Melusai Iron Scale, you could take another Bloodwrack Medusa, whether on foot or another shrine in there as well. So you could actually get a 1-drop Melusai army. You wouldn't be taking Morathi if you were to do something like that, but it would be possible. Beef up your Sisters units, maybe beef up your Stalkers units as well. So you could go with something like that. But what about the special rules in the Morathi book? Now, this is where I have to say I'd probably not take them, but there are some ones of interest. So there's a separate temple ability now. So you take the temple of Zainthar Kai. Now, 1+1 to the bravery of all your units. Now, okay, if you're going to be taking an entirely Melusai-based army, or this one encourages you to take a mixture of Melusai and Kinnerai. But with the Melusai in particular, 2 wound models, losing one of those is quite bad. You get yourself into a battle shock phase. Every extra one you lose one of those is not good. So the +1 bravery helps there. Okay, you can choose an additional hero to have a relic. So it's like getting an extra relic as well. Command ability that allows you know, an extra attack on your weapons, 1+1 to your attacks characteristic on a nearby Kinnerai or Melusai unit. And a command trait, the one you'd have to take if you had you took this temple, your general, at the end of the combat phase, roll a die for each enemy unit within 3 inches of the general on a 5-up suffers D3 mortal wounds. Okay, could do that. Particularly if you took a Bloodwrack Shrine where you'd want to get it into combat, and it's beefy enough to be able to stay there without getting completely mullered. Now, in terms of the battalions, not sure. I mean, the Viperic Guard puts Morathi in there, 1 or 2 Bloodwrack Medusae or Melusai Iron Scales in any combinations, 2 to 3 Blood Sisters units. So you wouldn't be doing a one drop with this, but you could get the bulk of your army with this one. In terms of its special ability, once per battle, a hero can use a command ability without a command point being spent. It's basically a free command point. That's it. You know, so with a battalion, you get an extra command point anyway. This one, it's like giving you +2 command points. Pretty boring. Could you make an army based around it? Yeah. Would it be a one drop army? I mean, it could be, probably wouldn't be. You're unlikely to go for that. Scath Coven, 1 Bloodwrack Medusa or Iron Scale, 1 to 4 Blood Sisters units, 1 to 2 Bloodstalkers units, 0 to 2 Kinnerai units. You just don't take battle shock tests. You could make an army based on that entirely. It would only have 1 hero. You'd probably take a Bloodwrack Shrine. Would you do that? You could try that. I'd be more tempted to try that one. It wouldn't be as interesting. Let's face facts. If you wanted to do this fun Melusai list, I would still think you want to take the new Morathi, but you could do this one. Shrine Blood, 2 Bloodwrack Shrines. At that point I'm thinking, I always like to take 1 Bloodwrack Shrine, if you can. I'm not sure I'd want to take 2. 2 Blood Sisters units or Bloodstalkers in any combination, 2 Kinnerai Harpies. So again, you're not going to make your entire army based on this 1 battalion, but again, you know, you can reduce the number of drops you're getting. Its ability in your hero phase, you can pick any number of units from the battalion. If they're within 6 inches of a Bloodwrack Shrine from the same battalion, then you kill a model in that unit and heal up 1 wound to that Bloodwrack Shrine for each Harpy that you do that for, and 2 for each Melusai. So, you know, you're surrounding itself with a source of wounds, really. You know, fine, you could do that, that's okay. But they're not really exciting. Again, if I looked at it, I would be thinking much more in terms of what was already there, in terms of the Temple Nest, if I was going to take a battalion, particularly with the Celebron Temple as well, where, you know, you can get, because the other thing with the Celebron is you also get the command trait that allows you to teleport you know, models and units around the battlefield at the start of your hero phase. Now, I did talk in the last video on the changes to Morathi, how that used to allow Morathi a really powerful trick. But you can still use it on Morathi. You could start off, have the Shadow Queen version of Morathi near that general in your first, and you know, your opponent, if they want to give you the first battle turn in battle round 1, they may well regret it, because you can still teleport Shadow Queen Morathi 9 inches away from their lines. And, you know, if you're willing to use your command point reroll, you know, you've still got a better than evens chance of getting a turn 1 charge off with the Shadow Queen launching herself into, you know, the crux of your opponent's army potentially. So I'd be definitely tempted to do that. If I was thinking of this, I'd think, yeah, because my main problem with the idea of a Melusai army is they're not slow, 8-inch movement, but at the same time, they're not going to instantly close down on something. And unless you're going to take, say, a Cauldron of Blood to give them the +1 save, and maybe Hagnar Temple to give them basically 5-up, re-rollable, feel no pain, to use a 40k term, you are going to worry that they're relatively easy to pick off until they can close with something in combat. So this, getting the Shadow Queen in their face straight away, where of course she can't die that quickly, even if you absolutely crush her. She can only take 3 wounds a turn, so she's going to last 2 full battle rounds at least, and that then does give you the time to sort yourself out. So I think that would be my pick if I were to take this. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, of course. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And until next time, I'll see you later.